So we have quite a full agenda, and so we're gonna dive right in.
This question about the island airport is something that has to be decided by our city surprisingly soon, possibly within the next year or the next year and a half. The entire airport is governed by what's called the TriParty Agreement. As many of you will know, it is an agreement between the city, Ports of Toronto or its predecessor, and the federal Ministry of Transport. And it sets out ground rules for the airport, and it also is effectively the lease of the land. It expires in 2033, which is 10 years away. However, there are also federal amendments to the Canadian aviation regulations, which require that what are called runway end safety areas, we use the abbreviation RESA usually, which must be built by January 2027 is my understanding of the expiry date to get that done. That amounts to probably lake fill at the end of the runways, quite a large construction project. And if that isn't done, then the airport has to close down. So it's something that has to get done pretty soon. And the reason it's related to the other deadline is that it's going to cost, according to Ports Toronto in 2021, somewhere between $50 million and $130 million. Now, I've heard estimates that the cost may have increased by, say, 40% since then, and maybe a lowball estimates. We're talking about a lot of money, and Ports Toronto is going to have to borrow that money somewhere. So it's going to require a good amount of time, decades really, possibly a 50-year extension on the tripartite agreement in order to go to the bank or an investor and say, give us the money. So the reason that all of this is sort of upon us right now is that Ports Toronto has said to the city, please give us an extension on the tripartite agreement. And also, we want to build these RESA extensions. So we're talking about a decision about what to do about the future of the island airport for the next 50 or 60 years, being made by City Council in conjunction with the federal government, possibly in the next year or year and a half. As is obvious, there's a lot more waterfront population density than there was in 1983 when the tripartite agreement was signed. Situation has completely changed. So there needs to be an examination of the adverse health effects, the traffic, the noise, environmental impacts of the airport. What would the RESA extensions, if built, actually look like? The situation has changed also in that Up Express, direct link to Pearson, has been built, opened in 2015. So that changes the equation, surely, in terms of transportation efficiency. Porter Airlines, the principal airline tenant at the island airport, has started to move not all of its flights, but many of its flights to Pearson. So the airport is less busy. There are fewer slots being used than there were. There's been litigation between Porter and Newport, which is the owner of the terminal. And we've learned from some of the public documents in that Porter says that it costs about 3 times as much to operate flights out of the island airport compared with Pearson. And it has threatened to leave altogether. So is it going to do that or not? It says it doesn't make money there. Is that true? Then does that mean it might, either Porter might disappear or just simply use it less? Does that mean that the island airport could turn into a white elephant? Finally, what are the alternative uses of the 210 acres on Toronto Island? And here we need to do some serious analysis and look at all sorts of different options. what the city planning documents say, as I understand it, is that they say that if the airport closed, then that land should revert to park or a combination of park and residential uses. So that means that there should be some serious investigation of the feasibility of some kind, either park with presumably large scale amenity of some sort, possibly some kind of mixture of housing and so on. Maybe the buildings can be repurposed. All of this needs to be looked at carefully, and possibly we need some kind of a high level design contest where international designers and urbanists and planners could say, well, what if you tried this? What if you did that? So it's kind of an exciting time to look at all of the possibilities.
So I'd like to bring Gil in at this point because Gil has a background on public spaces, and he's commented before on the need for green space, especially in a city that's growing as rapidly as Toronto is.
I want to mention these waterfronts. Waterfronts are actually like God-given assets to a city, just like the wind or the sun or the sky or the mountains are the waterfronts. And I think that if in any democratic society, waterfronts have to be public for everyone's use. And I think that anybody that believes in democracy, anybody who believes that the public good should prevail over the particular, should realize that this has to be about everybody. And clearly, an airport is not. I really want to thank YQNA for the work that you do, but you need to do even much more. We need to really be very loud. I'm talking about this because this is like a once in a century decision. There are many, many decisions that are minor, but this is gigantic. So let's talk about the airport. The airport plus the public space in the island is the size of Central Park in New York. It's magnificent. We're going to increase the population by over 50%. So if in the GTA we have about 5 million people, within 25 years, we're going to have 7.5 million people. And we need a park system that includes large parks, medium parks, small parks, active, passive, contemplative. In the airport, it would be going backwards like the crab. I mean, most cities around the world are ending the island airports and the downtown airports. We see just in the last 10 years, Beijing, Islamabad, Kuala Lumpur, Durban, Istanbul, Gothenburg, Quito. I mean, cities like Berlin got rid of the airport and did a park. Athens, Greece also got rid of the downtown airport and did a magnificent park. Chicago, the mayor also got rid of the downtown park and did a magnificent park. So the reality, why are they doing parks? It's not only because it is nice, fun, and games. This is an issue of economic development. The number one issue of economic development now and in the next 50 years will be how to retain our good people, how to attract good people. We're living in a moment when anyone that is good at anything, if you are good at making pizza, or if you are a good nurse, or a good teacher, or a good medical doctor, you can live anywhere, not anywhere in Canada, anywhere in the world. Why would they live in Toronto? So we really need to have magnificent places. And I think that the waterfront is magical in many ways also because waterfronts create equity. One of the things that create equity is the waterfronts where everybody attracts everybody, the wealthy and the poor and the old and the young and everybody. And I think that Waterfront Toronto, thank God we have Waterfront Toronto, because in the last 20 years, Waterfront Toronto has been doing the best large-scale urban projects in Canada. world-class projects, that this is a magnificent opportunity. It's not too early. Well, fortunately, now we know that in 3 years, they have to make a decision whether to increase the size of the airport or not. We urgently need a shared vision of that land combined with the islands, combined with all of the housing, and do something truly magnificent. I think we need more green space. We need more recreational space. We have the tunnel to go under. We have the connectivity, and it could be for all ages and all abilities and all income levels and all backgrounds. That airport, more and more, is becoming just an airport for not for the 1%, for the 0.00001%, for the people that have their private planes and that during the summer they want to go to their cottage in Muskoka. Because even Porter Airlines has realized that if they want to grow, they need an airport with all of the services that Pearson is providing, and people are willing to take the train to go there. It's not about the airport. It's about mental health and physical health, and it's about climate change and the environment and economic development. If people talk about jobs, almost all of the jobs would go to Pearson, like people that work in the airline, the pilots, the airlines, the service. And most of the jobs, 90% would still continue and they would go to Pearson. The federal government finally is putting money into urban parks, into urban. They have a commitment, Trudeau has a commitment to build 10 urban parks across Canada. No, there is not one site chosen for the GTA, not one, the GTA. This could be an amazing, it could be a win-win.
So Ed, a question for you in the chat. Porter is a private company, so it doesn't publish financial statements, but we have some sense that they have not been profitable for some time.
It's true that they are private, and so we don't know what the books say. There are some indications. We know that they tried to launch an IPO some years ago and had to withdraw it because it wasn't profitable. There were no profits on the books. What at this point I think is important is for the city to require that even if it's going to look at extending the airport, that it should get full disclosure of what Porter's situation is, what its business strategy is, how viable it is. It appears to be the case that ridership is way down. There's been, and it's not back, it has not recovered from COVID. So all of those details, I think, has to be investigated by the city. And if it's not viable and they're not going to be there, then obviously we shouldn't have an airport there that's, set up for an airline that's going to leave anyway, or just fail.
But Angelo, I think that we should not fall into the trap of the financials of Porter. That's completely irrelevant. This is not a legal issue. There should never be an airport on that island. Now with the train, with the UPX, and also with Pearson, and all of that should be a park. If we fall into the trap, what's going to make more money, the park or the airport? No, that's irrelevant. Or is it federal? Is it provincial? Is it municipal? No, we need to make this a political issue at all levels.
I agree with that. But I do say that the fact-finding stage is ahead of us now, and let's take it full advantage of it. The city should make every effort to get this information, because I think probably it's going to help, in fact, make the argument that the airport should close. So we should not say it doesn't matter, because I think it does matter. And all of the nitty-gritty details, the city should dig up and should insist that information be made available. All of us probably know somebody who loves the island airport. I myself use the island airport every now and then for jaunts of, to New York, and it's very nice in a way. I trundle my little suitcase down, along the lake, and I get on the plane. The question, I think, really is whether everybody else should be subsidizing me doing that. It's a pretty small percentage of the population of the GTA who benefit from it.
We need to start thinking that Toronto is not, we're not benchmarking ourselves with, or Mississauga or Winnipeg or where. We are competing with Paris and Melbourne and Copenhagen and New York and Vancouver and Montreal and so on. And I do think I love the idea of the competition, because that will really open up our minds.
Ports Toronto, what they really would like to do is to not really have a dialogue about it, and to say, well, okay, we have to build RISA, and we're prepared to have public meetings about, you know, what the fish habitat situation will be. But other than that, you know, we just turn over the airport. That's it. They don't want to have a public dialogue, and I say. And of course, there's a certain amount of inertia, as you said, Gil.
This is really a generational issue. It's a generational opportunity, really. You know,
Yeah.
What do we want to leave our children, our grandchildren? Do we want to leave them an airport that's kind of on its last legs, or do we want to give them a real opportunity to enjoy one of the outstanding parks in the world, kind of thing?
This is probably the last opportunity that Toronto has to have a major park in the city. Because other than this one, where are we going to get the land to do another large park? So let's think about mental health and physical health, and climate change and the environment and equity and sustainability. Now that we're going also through some hard issues of economic issues and housing and whatever, everything that is free should be fantastic.
As we continue to build higher and higher, I think landing on the island airport is going to be more and more challenging, especially with climate change. And so is safety a concern here as well?
That was one of the reasons that Mayor Daley in Chicago had the #1 reason to eliminate the airport near downtown. That it was after September 11, and with all of the towers, he said, for safety reasons, no city should have an airport right next to its downtown. This is for the next hundreds of years, for many millions of people. This is not a short-term decision. So let's be bold, let's be ambitious. Let's do something that is going to make us proud. We have this amazing possibility. And last, I want to thank you, Angelo, and everyone in the association, because all of you are so generous. All of you are giving this fight, which all of us are going to benefit. And all of you through Waterfront Toronto have been doing amazing things. And this fight that every member of the association is doing is not only for you, but it's for every Torontonian, for every Ontarian, for every Canadian. So thanks for having the association. Thanks for putting in so many hours and so much energy and so much effort, because it's not easy. This could be absolutely beautiful and could be done in the short term. This is not 50 years from now. We could see this within the next decade, and it would be just absolutely amazing.